CFC. How you doing, New Bedford? Just want to thank the Marion Institute for bringing us here. It's a pleasure to come speak and to do a workshop today. Before I get started, and also let me introduce my partner, Megan Sherman. Megan's a little camera shy, so I don't know if she really wants to speak. But so before I introduce who I am and what we do, I just want to tell a quick story. You guys like stories? No? Okay. All right. So early this year, I work, as Tim introduced, I work for an organization called New Lens Productions. And we did, the ACLU approached us to do a video about some of the arrest disparities in Maryland, specifically around marijuana, racial disparities around arrest. And so they wanted to speak on exactly what's going on, because in Maryland, it's a fine state, might I add, 3 African Americans or Black Americans are arrested 3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than whites, even though whites and blacks use marijuana at comparable rates, or essentially actually the same rate. And so they wanted to investigate why. So we ended up interviewing many residents on the issues of why they thought that was and how can we rectify that issue. And so what we noticed that when we're interviewing many young people, because young people are generally the ones who use marijuana the most, just a thought. They found out that there was a general tide of resentment towards police. And we wondered, okay, why is that? And so one thing that stuck out while we were doing those interviews was that a young man said during the interview that, he said, when I was younger, I used to think, oh, it's just guys on the corner that I have to worry about. That it's, usually just the people sitting around standing on corners. But he was like, no. When I got older, I realized, oh, it's not just the cops on the corner I have to worry about. It's the police, because the police will pop you too. He's talking about being verbally, not verbally, but physically assaulted by the police. And so during the course of the process of making this film, we noticed, we send clips back to the ACLU to say, hey, what'd you think? And they would say, oh, the sound here is good. We like that interview. Keep that in, take that out. Hey, this guy's forehead's a little bit. Can you remove that from the shot? And things like that. And so during the process of this, they said, hey, we like that interview that you did with the young man, but could you take out the part where he mentioned that the police will physically accost him? And so I say all that to say, generally, people are sometimes, I guess, afraid to discuss police brutality. Let's avoid the issue if possible. I understand if you had never actually had a physical confrontation with the police, then maybe you would want to avoid the issue as well. But I say all that because even when we do, especially in the media, we do see a particularly egregious case of violence, state-sanctioned violence by the police, we typically say, oh, look, that's one officer who committed this crime, or one officer who went beyond the constraints of the law. But that's not really the case, is it? What we noticed is that, specifically in Baltimore, but it's throughout all urban cities of America, is that there is a pervasive culture of violence. And it's pretty symptomatic just about everywhere. Not everywhere, but in many urban centers. And so let me go back to who I am and what I do. So I'm Babatunde Salaam, as you mentioned, and we're videographers. And when we started in 2007, we were actually just in an after-school program, and we learned how to make video. And so in 2007, we noticed that there was a growing tide of mass arrests. So, and just to give some history, in Baltimore, in 2005, 20,000 Baltimoreans were arrested where no charges were ever pressed against the individuals. meaning that essentially, basically like a college basketball game full of people were arrested by the police, and then no charges were pressed whatsoever. It was an era of mass arrests and an era of mass injustice. And so there was a policy behind it. And what we noticed is that this created a lot of alienation in communities where they saw people being arrested for absolutely no reason at all. It was an era of what they call zero tolerance. And so we decided to make a video about it. That's what we do, is the era of YouTube. Let's do it. We made a film about it and made some traction. And so we decided to continue doing our work into police trainings in Baltimore. So I was only 16 at the time. I think Megan was around the same age. And we just said we wanted to create a solution for this issue. And I think it was well-intentioned. And it ended up being that it was highly statistically effective. And I mentioned that because it's something like 80% of the officers said we learned something new. However, and this was between the period of 2009 and 2011, but I emphasize that it was statistically effective because right after our trainings in 2011, from 2011 and 2014, there was 102 different lawsuits brought against the Baltimore City Police Department. 102, that's quite a bit. And for those 102, all 102 were successfully awarded for a grand total of about $5.7 million. So obviously, this is the epidemic. I mean, something's going on where 102 different citizens are all suing the police department. So I said all that just to give a backdrop on exactly why we do the work that we do. There are people in communities who feel completely voiceless, where they are being accosted, sometimes in their own homes. In fact, in our workshop, we're going to show a video today where a young man's father called the police because his car had been broken into. And the police came in and they said, hey, are you the suspect? And the man was like, no, I actually called the police. And they said, well, can you sit down in your home because we're here to establish some order here? And the man said no. And he was actually arrested, and he was the one who actually called the police. I mean, that's just one of many stories that we ended up finding out during the course of our work and the course of our process. But at any rate, people are generally satisfied with the fact that we said our work was highly statistically effective, but it's not until we change the culture of this pervasive police violence and indifference to the communities that they actually serve. So we're going to address more of that in our workshop. We brought a lot of, I think, great videos I'm interested to show. But the main solution is that we need accountability in the communities so that people feel that they have a voice. And they actually need their representation in the police force. So it's important that people who live in a community actually police their community. That's the most effective form of accountability, is when you're doing it yourself. And so that's what we do, and that's why we're here today. So, thank you.